Good morning, everyone. Are you awake? Well, we hope so. My name is Mads, as the introduction said, and I'm here to talk a little bit about video. Actually, that's the only thing I'm going to talk about. I come from a company called GoViral, let me see. This is what we're going to talk about today. I think, first of all, it's always important to talk a little bit about the audience. The audience is what's driving all these changes. Then we're going to go into content, because when we start talking about video, a very important part of that is content. Then I come from an advertising background, and we work with brands. So I think I'm also very much here to represent brands and represent advertisers. I think advertisers are driving a lot of innovation online, and in the end of the day, they pay for a lot of the services that we use for free. Then GoViral specializes in distributing video, so I'm obviously going to spend a little bit of time on that as well. And then we're going to end with a case that can hopefully sum up some of these things. And instead of picking an obvious one, I picked Nokia, because Nokia is not doing that well, perhaps, at the moment. So I thought it was really interesting to look at some of the things that I actually think they're doing very well together with us. GoViral as a company, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. We're founded in 2005. It's a Danish company, but we've got offices in 6 countries now. We're opening US in a month or so, and we're opening Asia later this year as well. But we distribute globally, so we distribute across 90 countries at the moment. This is, in essence, what we do. We take videos from brands, from organizations, or from any other person that has content they want people to watch. Then we work with a whole network of different websites to get those videos out there, get them viewed. And the way that we do that is we guarantee an engagement up front. So it's a very sort of different model than the traditional online model. I'll talk a little bit about that later on as well. So first, the audience. Video as the social glue. I think first it's very important to state that I believe in Herbert Simon's statement about an attention economy. I think when you look across consumers today, and especially from an advertiser point of view, one of the key challenges is attention. There is simply so many things that users can do. They can play games, they can be on their phone, they can even log off and read a book. The amount of offers that we have as users to get entertained or to get information has exploded with the internet. Herbert Simon said this already in 1970. I think it's only becoming more and more true every day. One of the other things that is really driving this change and why we see such an interest from advertisers is because of fragmentation. So I always use the example with The Cosby Show. In 1987, The Cosby Show would reach between 25% and 30% of the US population every week. When you look at the biggest American show now, American Idol, they reach less than 10% of the American population. So this fragmentation, first from a few TV channels into 100 TV channels, and now into millions and millions of websites. It is really what's troubling brands, is that they don't know where to find their audience, and they don't know how to engage them. Video online, I'll argue today, is a very good way of doing that. I think it's also important to say that perhaps a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, video was very much in developed countries because it follows broadband penetration a lot. But in the last studies, we see global video penetration is really exploding. It's not just a European or a North American phenomenon. It's very much an Asian, it's a South American phenomenon, and very, very rapidly, it's also an African phenomenon, and Middle East. The other thing is that we're seeing an explosion in the amount of time that people spend with video. So on an average month now in Europe and the US, people spend more than 15 hours watching video online. I think there's 2 reasons for that amount of growth. One is that we're seeing better and better content come online. And the other reason, of course, is that we're seeing more and more content come online. We'll get back to that a little bit later when we talk about the distribution. And then I think it's also worth mentioning the composition. When we started 5 years ago, I think viral video was very much something for younger people. It was very much about laughing or shocking the audience, and that very much suited younger people. It's still, when we look today, the average composition of online video users are still younger than the average population, but it's very much changing, just like Facebook is changing. We are seeing that older and older demographics are using these services more and more. And then we see very much that video is made for conversation. So if you go just 1 year back, about 0.1% of our views came from Facebook as a source. There are many different sources inside of Facebook. But Facebook as a whole gave 0.1% of our views. In December this year, it was 12.5%. So I think it's both sort of a testimony to the popularity of Facebook. It's a testimony to the fact that we've become better at working with these social environments. But it's also, at the end of the day, very much a testimony to the fact that users like to spend time with video. They discuss video, they share video. Video is a very important part of this whole social experience. And then I always love to have this slide with me. It's from a World Cup campaign we ran last year for Hyundai. And it's a disabled guy called Nick Vujicic. He doesn't have any arms, he doesn't have any legs, but he loves football. And it's a little bit complicated for him to play it. He does. But I think more importantly, he had a spot where he was talking about the importance of sports and of football, and not just about winning, but about participating. And this user comment came in, and it said, look how many people his message has touched. Someone had to pay for it, and normally when people pay, they expect something in return. Sorry for sounding a little cynical, but a large part of this clip's impact is due to the professional filming, sound work, and editing. That was made possible by corporate sponsorship, and I think Hyundai did a pretty reasonable job of not blatantly slamming their name or logo into every frame. What this says to me is two things. First of all, it tells me that users today very much understand this game. They know that a lot of the content that they're watching are coming from brands. But if we remember the trading game, if we remember to give something back to consumers, then it's okay. It's okay that we're a brand and that we want to say something to people. We just have to remember to give them something back, whether it's good entertainment or it's relevant information. I think both things can be just as popular. So if we move a little bit on to the content, I have a workshop later today where we're going to talk much more about content. So if any of you are really interested in sort of taking a strategic approach to creating video and having a whole video strategy, I'm going to talk more about content later on. But for now, I think when we started, hence in a way our stupid name, GoViral, it's all about viral. I don't think it is anymore. I think the title of today's speech, "Viral is dead, online video is born." I think that whole idea of viral, the quicker we can kill it, the quicker we can start talking about video as something much broader and something that can do much more than just being funny. And I think we've seen that change from 5 years ago. It was very much these clips it was pretending to be users filming them. And then we've gone into a change where brands are producing more and more professional content. It's more about making the experience interactive, so letting users decide the journey. And it's very much about what we call always on. It's about having more content. In general, I think what we're trying to chase today, what I'm really trying to say today is that we should be out there more often. It's not enough to just create one video or one TV ad. We need more content, because at the end of the day, in an attention economy, what can engage users is content. And when we talk about the difference between TV and online, I think there are some things that are the same and some things that are changing. I think it's always about being engaging. It's always about finding the right message for your audience. It's always also about finding the right message for your brand. Again, one thing is to make people laugh. Another thing is to actually change their perception of your brand. And then when we change to online video, what we have to remember that is different from TV is that we don't have all the restrictions. Our video doesn't have to be 60 seconds, so it fits in a TV spot. It can be 68 seconds, it can be 72 seconds. The second thing we have to remember is that it's very much a non-linear experience. And by that I mean the user is in control. They decide when they want to watch this, and they decide very much how they want to watch this. So again, coming back to offering more content to the user, more experience to the user, I think it's all about really opening this universe for the brand that users can explore. If they want to watch more about the individual products, we should let them do that. If they want to have a more entertainment-based experience, we should let them do that. And then it also very much changes the way that we buy media, which is what we specialize in. Because in TV, you tend to plan your campaigns many months ahead. You book your TV schedule. With online video, you can really start to get feedback the second you distribute your videos. And you see what users think, what video is the most popular, what are users saying about it. And it gives us this real-time element that we can adapt our strategy based on what users are saying. So it's very much also changing the way that we're planning media. And then just to finally kill viral, I think video can take a much broader role in our marketing communications. I think video is an excellent tool for generating awareness. I think if you have a very strong TV ad, there is nothing wrong with putting that TV ad online. But also what we call branded content in general, which is content that are good at engaging and entertaining an audience. That's typically the first experience users will have with a brand. They'll click something interesting because there's a sports star in it, or a music star in it, or it otherwise represents something entertaining, something they want to spend their time with. But then we can open up a whole universe. We can tell brand stories over a longer period of time. One of my favorite examples is Nicorette, the anti-smoking plaster in Canada. And they really decided that they were going to shoot a TV ad, 60 seconds. And then they started thinking about it, and they asked themselves, what could we really get for those money instead? And they found a TV producer from Hollywood, and they came up with this idea of following 10 smokers over 10 weeks trying to quit smoking. And I don't know if you can imagine that, first of all, they ended up with about 400 hours of content instead of 60 seconds. So this story can go for months. You know, just the experiment itself was 10 weeks. The second thing that it allows is, once you've seen the initial trailer, and you've become aware of this, as a user, you can actually choose to follow the person that you care most about. So I'm a smoker, and there was a young guy in there. You know, most likely that's the guy that I will identify with. If you're an older woman, there was a grandmother trying to stop smoking because she wanted to live to see her grandchildren. You know, it's very much opening up the experience that as a user we can engage with this content in any way that we want. And then finally, I think video is very good also at teaching us about products. So once we become interested in a product, video is really the most engaging way of learning about a product. We work with a lot of technology companies, and one of the things that I always try to say to them when we're out there is, I think that 2-3 years from now, we're not going to have a manual. When we buy a new phone or a new camera, why would you want to put a manual in there? Why don't you want users to go home, log online, and watch how they can use their camera or their phone? I think it's a much more engaging way of learning about products. And what happens really is that if you give users that experience, they really get more out of their product. So you're actually enhancing the real world value of your products. So let's have a look at one of videos.
Turn off the Mac about the world. Turn off the Mac, my flow. You know.
So we'll cut it short here. The video itself is a little bit longer. This is from T-Mobile in England, where I live. And I think, of course, this is very sort of entertainment-based content. You can see that the brand is taking a very backseat role. They're actually just in the end of the video. Another thing that is with this type of content is that T-Mobile has really opened up a whole universe. So they started out about 2 years ago with a big dance on one of the big train stations, where suddenly a whole flash mob started dancing. Some of you have possibly seen the videos. Then they continued on one of the big squares in London. They had a big sing-along where they invited thousands and thousands of people to come and sing with them. And then finally, this video that I showed, they were taking over Heathrow Airport and welcoming people that came home from holiday in a slightly more entertaining way than normal. I think there's two things that's important about this. First is that T-Mobile did a really good job of mixing the online world with the real world. They're asking people to engage in this, to participate in this, and it's very much helping to spread the word about it. The other thing is that it's giving them a lot of content over 2 years' time. So instead of just having one video to put out there, they actually have more than 760 videos produced in the last 2 years. So you cannot just watch these 3 minutes from Heathrow. You can watch interviews with the artists that are performing. You can watch interviews with the users, with the people that were there in the airport. You can see how they shot the ad. And if we look at the sing-along as an example, they didn't just create a sing-along on the square in London. They were creating sing-along activities all over England. And they were filming all these things. So again, you can imagine that they're building a very, very rich content universe where users can actually spend a lot of time with the brand. In many ways, a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today really can be summed up as a lot of these brands are starting to think about themselves as media companies. So if we go back just 5 or 10 years, they had to communicate to their users via TV or via a newspaper. Then suddenly they had a website. Suddenly they could communicate directly to the user. But it was very hard to really engage users in an experience. With video, they get that opportunity. And they get that opportunity to engage people where they are, not just at their website, but also on a whole lot of other websites. We'll come back to that later on. Coming from an advertising background and working with a lot of the big brands, I think it's important to also talk about video as an advertising format. And I very much like to follow just the journey that we've had. If we go back some years, I think that the first step of the internet was really about access. It was about getting people online. If we talk about it from an advertising point of view, we started to talk about reach. You could reach some people online. That was a whole new medium. The way that we did that was very much with banners. Then we moved in, we started to get broadband. In terms of advertising, it became a lot about performance, very much Google and search. And what we're seeing now is that when people actually have laptops that work, and they have broadband, then they start to care less and less about the hardware. They start to care less and less about the technology. They become more and more about the experience. And when you start to talk about experience, you can start to talk about branding. So I think that's why we're seeing now a lot of the traditional brand advertisers are very interested in working with us, because they see that with online video, they actually get a chance to replicate what they've been doing on TV, but it doesn't work that well anymore. They get a chance to reinvent that model online, and not just reinvent it, but reinvent it in a much more interesting way than they could on TV. So very much this revolution that is coming now is about audio-visual content. It is about video, because video is the best thing for brands. And when we look at it from an advertising point of view, when we talk about display advertising, we usually measure in click-through rate. How many people are actually clicking on the banner to go somewhere else? We've seen that drop significantly, 60% over the last 5 or 6 years in Europe. People don't click on banners. I don't know if any of you do. I don't think I've clicked a banner for the last 3 or 4 years. Video, however, can actually engage people. And I think especially if you distribute video so it looks like content. If it's in a video player, there's nothing wrong saying that it comes from a brand, but that it looks like a content experience means that users are 10, 20 times more likely to actually engage with your message. Then when we start to measure what it does to users, it becomes really interesting. Video ads online are typically 4 to 7 times more effective than any other online format we have. So simply when we measure it, it's better at changing their perception of the brand, it's better at changing their purchase intent, and it also raises awareness significantly more. You know, in the end of the day, you have to click to actually say, yes, I want to spend time with this brand. That is a completely different way of engaging users than we used to. We typically say that it's from push, that we push our advertising out to people, to pull, that users choose to have an experience with us. And also, when we talk about the technology, Google, as an example, are very, very fond of video. For once they bought YouTube, they spent almost $2 billion doing that. But also in their search results, video is much more likely, if you do it well, with titles, with tags, with descriptions, to actually make it to the front page of a Google search. So instead of spending a lot of money buying search results, we can really use video to become part of the organic internet, of becoming part of the conversation. And when we look at all those things together, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but this is one of the first big studies that have been done, and it was done in the UK. But this is Cadbury, a chocolate brand, and they were really measuring across 10,000 people, where did we get the most results out of our money? And I think not surprisingly, due to the things I've said before, it was online video. Also, I wouldn't have brought the case if it wasn't online video. But the more interesting thing is also that they found out that 2/3 of the people that watched this ad online didn't actually see the ad in TV. So we're also starting to see a scenario online where it's not the same users that are watching a lot of video online that are watching TV. It's really more traditional people that are watching TV, whereas very much our generation will choose to watch it online. So for these brands, it's important to cover off this new medium as well, because otherwise they're losing out on a very important part of their target audience. And then I think that the last thing is about video as an advertising format is really to say that there is an opportunity right now. We know that it's growing. We know that it's going to explode in the next couple of years. But right now, there is a significant difference between the amount of attention that users give to content online and the amount of advertising money that is going into this space. So you can really get very far with not a lot of money. I think that's probably going to look very different 4, 5, 6 years from now. But right now, there is a massive opportunity to engage people in a very cost-effective way. So if we talk about content as being very important, then distribution is queen. That's what we say, and that's what we believe in. That's what we've built a whole company around. And I think just to sort of continue this discussion about viral versus video as something much broader, we took a look at the automotive industry. So Ad Age, the biggest American marketing magazine, they've got a list every week of the top 10 virals, the videos that are watched the most from brands. And during the whole year, we found 12 or 13 videos from automotive brands that had made it onto the list. And you should tell, we should think that that means that viral is well, it's alive. But then when you start to look at it, really, it was only 2 of those 12 or 13 videos that it was actually on the list for more than 1 week. And second of all, it was very important that all those videos were actually paid for. So people had paid to distribute those videos. And I think what it's telling us is not that video is dead. It's just that the competition now means that you have to work more professionally with it. You can't just upload your video to YouTube and expect millions of people to watch it. You really have to make your media plans like you used to with TV or with online. You've got to make sure that the first video, the first week that you go out with this, you create a whole lot of attention for your video. Otherwise, it's just going to drown among thousands and thousands of videos. So coming back to my initial point, there's about 200,000 videos being uploaded to YouTube every day, or about 35 hours of content every minute. And that's really changing in two ways. First of all, as I said, we're seeing more and more professional content. So more and more of the traditional content providers are starting to offer their content online, whether they want it or not. I mean, Peter was here yesterday from Pirate Bay, right? People can also get their content even though it's not in a legal way. But also we're seeing much more content. So we're seeing thousands and thousands of videos from normal people filming their birthday. It might not be very interesting for us, but it's out there and it's taking up space. And you know, some of the amateur stuff that is being done is really, really incredible. It's very, very engaging. And as a brand, we see two things. We see that, first of all, you get this tremendous opportunity because you can actually communicate directly with your users. But it's also, you know, there's also a pitfall that we have to compete against everyone else who wants to talk to users. So suddenly it's a very democratized media space. Whoever's most interesting is going to win this game. And that's why I'm saying earlier that I think brands need to start, companies and organizations in general, they need to start thinking more and more like a content company, like a media company. They need to think in content. One of the things that you can say, this is sort of the foundation of everything that we do at GoViral, is that we believe the traditional online model with having display banners, selling them on a CPM, on an impression basis, really let's try to change that. Because when we have video, we can do something that is very much more interesting. We can activate it as content. We can let advertisers pay for views instead of impressions. You know, at the end of the day, if you have a video, you very much want people to watch that video. You don't just want them to load the website where the video is. So I think that's some of the changes that we're really seeing brands being interested in. I think the last thing that's really important about that is that video is very portable. So we can take that experience and we can distribute it across thousands of websites where we know users are interested. So if you're a technology company, you can actually take your video and you can take it out to thousands of technology environments where people are interested in this type of content. It's a very different model than taking everyone and try to get them into your website. And we're really trying to take that model and change it upside down. And then it's very much about what we call the long tail. Because even when you look now, typically the first time I go out and talk to a client, they think that YouTube is everything. And YouTube is big, it's massive. It's about 30% of all the video that's being watched out there. But a lot of YouTube's videos are not being watched on YouTube itself. When you think about it, it's really the same model. It's YouTube's video player being embedded on thousands and thousands of websites. So it's very much a distributed experience. And when we look across our network at GoViral, in the last year, 30% of our views came from our top 20 websites. The majority of those views really come from what we call the vertical champions. So those could be the international sites that specialize in one subject. I think Engadget is a brilliant example in technology. Then it's the national champions. You know, in Lithuania it could be Delphi. Typically, countries have 10, 20 very big local websites that are also very interesting to work with. And then we have what we call the vertical long tail. Those are thousands and thousands of smaller websites and blogs where we really have a very dedicated audience. It's a niche audience, but it's a very dedicated audience. And what you can do is you can use technology to achieve scale. So because we can use technology to work with thousands of websites, we can really achieve the same scale as the big websites can, but we can do it in much more niche communities where we have a much more dedicated user base. And I think that's really driving very good results. In fact, you can measure it in engagement. So when we look at GoViral's network, compare it to YouTube or video advertising in general, we see that we have a higher click-to-play rate. So 3% of users that watch one of our video players will actually click on it to watch the video. It also means that more people are watching the whole video. And it also means that more people are clicking through from the video to something else. Whether it's a Facebook group, it's more content, or it's perhaps the advertiser's website. And I think the video player is a very important part of driving that. We believe that our video player should replicate any other video player watching any other type of content. You should be able to watch it in full screen with the sound on and off. You should be able to share it with your friends. We should be able to have different interactive elements. So again, very much remembering this non-linear experience. If the user at any time wants to explore something else, we should give them that opportunity. And of course, all these social plugins from Facebook and from everyone else, it's also becoming more and more important. We have a measurement now that we call video actions, and it's what we give to all our clients. And it simply measures out of 1,000 users, how many people did something social with the video. Did they rate it, comment it, embed it on their website, or share it to a social destination? And what we've seen in the last year or so, as we've added more and more of these interactive and sharing elements, is that more and more people do something social with the video. And we've actually read a lot of research lately that points out that users don't mind that you tell them what you want them to do. So at the end of the video, there is nothing wrong asking users, do you want to share this video with your friends? We're seeing that when you do that, there is a tremendous uplift in the amount of people that do something social. So I've got a case study here from LG. We ran a big campaign for them globally last year with their new phone, Optimus. And what we decided to do for them to prove this point was that for the first 48 hours, we ran with the standard video player, and we ran with a video player that when you took the mouse over it, the phone actually appeared with 4 different things you could do. You could go to their YouTube channel, you could go to their Facebook group, to their website to learn more about the phone, or you could go to Flickr, where they had collected a whole bunch of pictures, both taken with the phone, but also about the phone in general. And the difference in results that we saw in terms of interactions was really quite tremendous. You see that 200 to 400% more users do something inside of that little screen, inside of that little Optimus video player. So I think it's very important to also think about the user journey that we want to create. We don't just want to show users a video. We want to tell them that there is a whole experience that they can have if they want, that they can continue that experience in somewhere else. You can, of course, also serve other videos after the initial video. So finally, let's sort of talk about Nokia to try to sum up a lot of these things. When we started working with Nokia back in 2007, they were very much doing online marketing like everyone else. They had display banners, they were doing some search, they had websites, they had just started the blog, Nokia.blog. But then they started to get their first couple of successes with online video. There was a very famous clip with Bruce Lee playing ping pong. I'm sure some of you would have seen it. It came out of China, but suddenly it spread globally, and it delivered about 10 million views. And it very much made Nokia realize that there was a potential here, that they needed to find out how to work with this thing strategically. They needed to make change inside of their organization. So we've worked with them for the last sort of 3 or 4 years, and I think we've seen a lot of change inside of Nokia in those years. I mean, Nokia today drives 52 global destinations. They have 52 different destinations that they have to fill with content every day. So when you think of I work a lot with their content creation team, all the guys do all their video and all their editorial content. And they've really taken that change. They don't call themselves the marketing team anymore. They call themselves the editorial team, because they really know that with 52 destinations, they need to create content every day. So the change we're very much seeing is, in traditional media, we call it peak and valley. Usually you plan your campaign around a new product or around a new slogan, and then you buy TV, you buy media, and you're online for a month or 2, you talk to people, and then you pull the plug and you go home and you're quiet. And while you're quiet, interest drops, but because we don't have money to buy TV all the time, we don't have any choice. So when it drops to a certain degree, we'll go back online, we'll say, hey, we're still here, and people will remember us again. It's the only choice in traditional media, but it's a very expensive way of building attention because you have to start over every time. So we've discussed a lot with Nokia, but also other clients, about what we call always on. That when you do things online and you do them well, you can really build a community, you can build an audience over time. You don't have to start all over again every time. I think one of the most successful examples I've seen of this is Nike. They launched the Ride the Future ad before the World Cup last year, and you could log in and you had to like their Facebook page to actually watch the ad before it premiered on TV. And then after that, they sort of promoted another series they had called The Chance. Again, we're going to talk much more about Nike in the workshop later on, but The Chance was really the idea that users could make their own Facebook page within Nike's page to promote themselves as a football player. And they actually built a whole academy where you could get recruited as a football player. So they very much used that initial push around the World Cup to build a community. And when we talked, 9-10 months later, they have 6.5 million fans of their Facebook page. This is 6.5 million users that they can talk to directly. Every time they post a message, it goes right out to 6.5 million people. When you think about that, that's really quite tremendous. It's more than most newspapers or TV stations can reach. And Daniel sort of summed it up for Nokia. He said, we want to take a dandelion approach to content. Instead of aiming to create that one amazing viral in a year, we want to create 365 potential candidates. So it's really about changing that perception from having that one video and put all your luck into that one video to creating videos every day. Because if you do that, what happens is you actually get much better at creating videos. So over time, you're building up that experience inside the organization, and the content that you're turning out in the other end tends to become more and more interesting because you get users' feedback, because you realize that some things are working well for you, but other things are not working so well. It's a very steep learning curve once you start producing content and distributing it, because you get users' honest opinion about your content every time. You can go back with the ratings and with the feedback and say, you can even measure how much they watch of the video, and you can go back to your production company and say, it was a great video, but 32 seconds into the video, it became quite boring because we can see people are leaving the video. When you think of that transparency, it's really quite incredible. So the way that Nokia sort of sums this up now, I think, I created this model, Nokia didn't. So if they don't agree, it's my fault. I think they think very much in content now, and I think they think very much in audience. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later, but we're going to watch a video from Nokia just after this. Then it's very much about getting the right people to produce that content. Then they use us for testing that. So you can have different versions of the video, and you can send that out, and after the first 48 hours, you can see which version of the video is actually most popular with users. And then you can continue your campaign with that. I think we'll see very much in the future companies using this to test their TV ads online. Why not make 10 different edits of your TV ad, distribute it for 48 hours online, see which one users actually really like, and then buy a lot of TV with that, because you already know that it works. So let's have a look at their latest ad.
You ready?
It's not technology, it's what you do with it. That's what really impresses us, makes us laugh out loud. Or wonder, how do they do that? Hamster-powered phone charger. Genius. The Nokia N8. What will you do with it?
So we can always discuss Nokia sort of from a product point of view, and I think a lot of the problems that they have at the moment is possibly because of products rather than advertising. Because I think that this is actually a brilliant ad. To just give a little bit of background, featured in this ad is 9 different stories. So it's people that have used their Nokia phones for doing things out of the box. So one guy is using his hamster to charge his phone. Another guy's built a robot that he can control with his phone. Another guy built a little plane that he can control with his Nokia phone because they can communicate. And they're very much sort of celebrating what people can do with technology. And when you think about it, there's almost 6 million people that have watched this ad online. And that's their TV ad. So it's not a viral in any sense. It's a TV ad. But it's obviously distributed in a very relevant way. It's distributed on all these sort of technology environments and environments where we know people celebrate technology in general. But also, what we then did was very much taking each of those individual stories. So there is a guy behind each of these stories, right? And Nokia was also filming them. They were very much telling their stories, so that once you've watched this initial ad, or perhaps you actually got in contact with one of the sub-stories first and just realized the ad afterwards, is that you were following each of these individual characters. So after you've watched this, you could really explore any of these stories into much more detail. You can see how the guy did it. You could even look at, for some of the stories, they had the blueprints, they had the designs, they had how the whole technology was working. So it's very much celebrating technology and very much celebrating the people that were doing something good with technology. But it also means that you have your TV ad, but you also have a lot more content that you generate on the back of that project. So you're not just creating those 60 seconds, you're creating a whole content universe. And I think if I have to sum things up on the last 2 slides, I think the one thing to remember is that we can use video for a lot of different things. We can use video in the top of what we call the purchase funnel. We can use it to drive initial awareness and interest from users. But then we can also use product films and learning films to teach people more about our actual products and services. We can facilitate learning. We can use interactive things to make people explore more, to share it, to actually do something, to make them help us distribute this. And then I think, obviously, at the end of the day, users still have to end up somewhere where they can then purchase. Whether or not that's in a shop or it's online, I think that depends very much on who you are and what product and service you're selling. But the idea is that you can use video not just to be funny, but all the way through the funnel, you can really drive a lot of change in the perception of users. So just to sort of sum up today in general, I think video is moving from one format, viral, into a lot of different things. I think that Nokia is realizing that their content can come from many different sources. So as an example, the global ad here was shot by Wieden & Kennedy, which is their global advertising agency. But they also work with 5 or 6 different production companies that can produce content a lot quicker. So you used to just have your traditional advertising agency. You would go to them, you would create campaigns. I think that element still has to be there. There needs to be an overall plan for the brand. But then you need to work with other people that can create content a lot quicker. So if you get a good idea, you really want the video to be online 2 or 3 days later. I think the best example of this is the Old Spice ad, where they were actually creating 180 ads as a response to the initial ad. And then it's very much a media story. I think it's about the long tail. I think it's about looking at relevant channels to distribute your content in, to also build up that network over time. Again, thinking about Nike and Facebook groups. And then it's very much remembering the analytical part of it, the tracking part of it. Remember that for everything that you do, you can get benchmarks, you can get feedback from users, you can learn every time you distribute. Of course, we're at GoViral, we're quite proud of our tracking, but even on YouTube and other services, you can get a lot of feedback on what users are really thinking about the content. So again, if you start working with this and you take the tracking part serious, you can really create a very steep learning curve inside the organization. You really see that the people who are working with this over a very short period of time can become a lot better at creating what users are interested in. I think that was what I had for today. I hope you enjoyed it.